The cave had no name. At least, none that the locals would admit to knowing. The villagers at the foothills called it a place best left in the dark, always lowering their voices when the subject came up, as if sound itself might carry too far and wake something listening. Maps marked only the mountain range, not the whole hidden behind tangled forest and stone. It was a place you didn't stumble upon unless you were meant to. He hadn't come here chasing legends. He had come running from himself, from his mistakes, from the world above that demanded more than he could give. His name was Daniel, though in the solitude of the forest, even that felt irrelevant, like a discarded skin. What mattered now was the thirst clawing his throat, the ache in his muscles, and the weight of silence pressing down with every step he took into the cavern's mouth. The air shifted as soon as he crossed the threshold. The temperature dropped, crisp and damp, thick with minerals. A faint draft whispered along the stone walls, carried with it the scent of earth that had not seen the sun for centuries. Stalactites hung like the jaws of some fossilized beast, dripping steady rhythms into the unseen depths below. Each sound echoed too long, as if the cave itself were stretching it, savoring it. Daniel's flashlight beam cut through the dark, trembling slightly in his grip. The cave swallowed the light greedily, returning only fragments of what it revealed. Twisted rock formations, faint patches of moss that glowed a sickly green, markings etched deep into stone. They weren't random. He saw a repetition, looping spirals and jagged slashes arranged in patterns, almost like language. His mind snagged on them for too long before he forced his gaze forward. The path narrowed, then widened suddenly, and he stepped into a chamber that made him stop breathing. At its center lay a pool. It wasn't large, no more than 20 feet across, but the water shimmered with strange luminescence, not reflecting the light, but producing it. The surface was so still it looked like a pane of obsidian glass, perfectly mirroring the jagged ceiling above. A low hum pulsed from it, faint but steady, like the resonance of a note too deep to hear, but strong enough to feel in the bones. His thirst surged painfully. He hadn't planned to go this far without supplies. His water bottle had run dry hours ago, and he had convinced himself he'd find a stream outside. But now here was water, clear and bright, untouched by mud or debris. It looked clean, too clean. He should have hesitated. He should have turned away. But his knees bent before his mind decided, carrying him closer, lowering him to the edge. The glow touched his skin first, brushing him with warmth that spread through his fingers. He leaned forward, cupping his hand, and the water felt lighter than any he had ever held, almost slippery, sliding across his skin like silk. He lifted it to his lips. The first drop hit his tongue like lightning. It wasn't cold or warm. It was alive. The taste was indescribable, as if every flavor he'd ever known was compressed into one drop, then magnified beyond reason. Sweet, bitter, metallic, sharp. His senses couldn't categorize it. He swallowed before he realized he had. The second swallow came easier, then a third. His thirst screamed for more, and he obeyed. His body trembled. His pulse thundered in his ears. His vision blurred and sharpened at once. Colors deepened. Shadows curved in impossible ways. And the hum from the water roared into a full chorus. His skin buzzed, his bones ached, and for one horrifying moment, he thought his body was going to burst from the inside out. Then it stopped. The cave was silent again, but Daniel was not the same. His breath came sharp, his chest rising and falling as if every inhale dragged fire and storm into his lungs. The air carried scents he shouldn't be able to detect. The iron tang of stone, the faint musk of moss, something sweet and ancient hovering behind it all. His hearing sharpened too, catching echoes far beyond the chamber. And then it came, a whisper, not through his ears, but directly into the marrow of his spine, sliding like ice under the skin. You have no idea what you just became. He spun around. His flashlight beam slashed the darkness, landing on nothing but jagged rock. His breath fogged in the chill air, but it wasn't the cave that made him shiver. The whisper hadn't been an echo. It had been behind him, close enough that he should have felt the warmth of a mouth against his ear. But no one was there. The chamber remained still, but the stillness was no longer neutral. The cave was aware of him now, watching, listening. The markings on the walls pulsed faintly, as if in rhythm with his heartbeat. The pool rippled without touch, spreading concentric rings across its once perfect surface. Daniel took a step back, his shoes scraping against stone that suddenly felt too soft, like flesh. His throat was dry again, but this time not from thirst. This time it was from dread. You have no idea what you just became. The words wouldn't leave him. They threaded through his mind, burrowing deep, and he realized with growing horror that he hadn't heard them in English. He had heard them in something older than any language he should understand. And yet he understood it perfectly. He wanted to run. His body screamed for it. But the cave's mouth was behind too many turns, and the hum from the pool was rising again, vibrating through his chest like a second heartbeat. He knew, with a certainty that defied logic, that if he tried to leave now, something in the cave would not let him. So he stood frozen, staring at the water, at the markings, at the shadows that suddenly seemed deepened before, as the weight of unseen eyes pressed down on him. He had drunk. He had swallowed something that was never meant for him. And whatever it was, it had already begun to change him. Daniel didn't sleep that night. Not that he could have, even if he'd tried. He had stumbled back to the mouth of the cave, pacing the tree line under the pale glow of the moon. Every time he closed his eyes, fragments of images blazed across his mind. Things that weren't his memories, but forced themselves into him anyway. A circle of figures in robes, their hands raised to the sky. Stone altars slick with something dark. Firelight dancing against walls etched with the same symbols he had seen deeper inside. And voices, always voices. Low chants in a language his ears shouldn't have understood, but his mind translated effortlessly, as though the knowledge had always been buried inside him, waiting. By dawn, his body felt different. He realized at the moment the first shaft of sunlight struck him. Instead of warming his skin, it pierced through him. Too bright, too sharp. His pupils shrank, and for the first time in his life, daylight hurt. He stumbled back into the shade, gasping, his heart hammering. "What the hell is happening to me?" he whispered. The forest didn't answer, but the cave behind him did. A vibration rolled through the ground, subtle at first, then building into a deep thrum. Dust rained from the trees, and birds erupted into the sky. Daniel whipped his head back toward the cave. The sound wasn't an earthquake. It was a pulse, like the beat of a giant heart buried beneath the mountain. And he knew, without understanding how, that the pulse was answering him. That evening, he returned to the chamber of the pool. He told himself it was to prove nothing had changed, that he hadn't really drunk something forbidden, that his mind was playing tricks. But as soon as he crossed the threshold, he knew better. The markings on the walls glowed faintly now, threads of blue-white light running through the grooves. He hadn't imagined it yesterday. He was seeing them awake. The hum from the pool was louder too, vibrating in his teeth, in his bones. When he reached out and laid a hand on the stone wall, the markings flared brighter. And suddenly, knowledge surged into his mind. Not words, not images, but raw understanding, as if the stone itself had whispered into him. The symbols weren't just decorations. They were a language. And worse, he could read them. The drinker becomes a vessel. The vessel awakens the sleeper. The sleeper becomes a world. He staggered back, clutching his head. The words weren't metaphorical. He knew that instinctively. They were rules, carved into stone by something that had wanted them remembered long after its own bones had turned to dust. His breathing quickened. The whisper from a night before echoed again in his skull, layered now with the symbol's meaning. You have no idea what you just became. Daniel looked at the pool again, its surface rippling though no air stirred. He felt the water inside his veins, alive, shifting, carrying with it something that wasn't blood. Every nerve felt rewired. Every heartbeat out of sync with the rhythm of the world he'd known. And then he wasn't alone. At first, it was only a shadow stretching along the wall, shaped like a man but too long, too thin, its limbs tapering into nothing. He froze, convinced it was just his flashlight casting strange angles. But then it moved without him. "Show yourself," Daniel shouted, though his voice cracked halfway. The shadow peeled itself from the stone. It had no eyes, no mouth, no features at all, just a hollow silhouette that bent the air around it. Yet he felt it studying him, measuring him. When it spoke, The voice didn't come from a mouth. It came from everywhere. You drank what was never meant for your kind. Daniel's throat tightened. What did I drink? The shadow tilted its head, almost curiously. A memory, a seed, a key. It took a step closer, and though its feet made no sound, the pool shivered violently as if in reaction. Now it is in you, and through you, the sleeper stirs. I didn't ask for this. Daniel snapped, anger bubbling up to mask his fear. No one ever does. The word sank into him, heavy with resignation. Like this being had seen countless others stumble into the same fate. He wanted to press it, demand answers, but before he could, the shadow dissolved into the darkness, vanishing as though it had never been there. The chamber was silent again, but silence had lost its comfort. Daniel's hand shook, his breath ragged. He looked at the glowing script on the walls one last time, feeling their meaning settle like chains around his chest. He wasn't just a man anymore. He wasn't just Daniel. He was a vessel, and something inside the mountain was waking because of him. Daniel woke the next morning with the taste of stone and metal in his mouth. At first, he thought it was blood, but when he spat onto the dirt, the liquid shimmered faintly before sinking into the ground like dew on thirsty soil. His stomach turned. Whatever was inside him was no longer content to lie dormant. The forest around him felt louder now. He heard insects moving beneath bark, the flutter of wings miles away, even the distant rush of a river far beyond the mountain. Each sound layered over the next until it nearly drove him to his knees. His sense of smell sharpened too, so acute that he could pick apart the musk of animals that had passed through hours earlier, the sweet rot of fallen leaves, even the faint metallic tang of the cave breathing behind him. It was exhilarating and terrifying. As the hours passed, new sensations clawed through his body, strength swelling in his muscles, reflexes sharper, vision clearer. When he gripped a boulder outside the cave entrance, his fingers dug grooves into stone that should have resisted him. He stumbled back, staring at his own hands like they belonged to someone else. "What the hell is happening to me?" he whispered again. But this time, his voice sounded different, layered, as though someone else had whispered with him. By dusk, he had returned to the chamber. The pool rippled before he even stepped inside, as though greeting him. He didn't want to admit it, but some part of him felt drawn, like he belonged there now. The glowing inscriptions burned brighter as he entered, and vision slammed into his skull once again. This time, they were clearer. He saw others, men and women through ages past, kneeling at the pool's edge, drinking as he had. Some screamed and fell lifeless. Others rose, changed. He watched through their eyes as they strode into the world carrying power that bent nature, power that built and destroyed in equal measure. Kingdoms flourished under their hands, and kingdoms burned. But not one of them stayed human. Daniel gasped, clutching at his chest. His heart thudded erratically, sometimes too fast, sometimes painfully slow. The water inside him was rewriting him with every beat. The whisper came again, not as a shadow this time, but as a presence, settling behind him like a weight pressing down on his shoulders. "You feel it now," it murmured. Daniel gritted his teeth. "I didn't want this. One is irrelevant. The pool does not choose out of mercy. It chooses out of need." Daniel spun around, anger burning through his fear. "Then what does it need me for?" The presence seemed to smile, though it had no mouth. "You are not the first vessel, but you may be the last. The sleeper stirs more violently with each awakening. Soon it will no longer dream. It will rise." Daniel's skin prickled. "And I'm supposed to just let that happen?" The whisperer's voice lowered. "You could stop it, or you could become it. Both paths consume you." The words haunted him as he left the chamber. His body pulsed with alien rhythm, every step carrying strength that frightened him. When he reached the forest again, the trees looked different, smaller, weaker. He flexed his hands and felt the urge to tear them from the ground, to remake the world in his image. But with that urge came hunger, a gnawing, endless hunger that no food could satisfy. It wasn't in his stomach. It was in his blood, demanding something more, something he didn't yet understand. That night, intruders came. Daniel woke to voices in the forest, low, careful, carrying weapons. He stayed still listening, heard the pulse. He drank, I can smell it. Then we kill him before it spreads. Daniel's pulse roared. Strangers, no, hunters, were moving through the trees, their steps too precise to be ordinary men. They were here for him. His instinct screamed, but so did something deeper, something primal that now lived inside him. When they emerged from the shadows, 5 figures clad in dark gear, eyes glowing faintly. Daniel barely had time to think. They lunged. His body moved on its own. Strength exploded through him. He caught the first attacker by the throat and slammed him against a tree, splintering bark. Another swung a blade, but Daniel's hand shot up, catching the steel mid-swing. The weapon snapped like brittle bone. He moved too fast, too brutally, each strike ended with bone cracking, bodies falling. When the last one hit the ground, silence returned. Daniel stood over them, chest heaving, his hands slick with blood that glowed faintly in the moonlight. He hadn't tried to kill them, but something inside him had. The whisper returned, closer than ever, curling around his ear like smoke. They will hunt you, and they will not stop. Daniel clenched his fists, trembling. He wanted to run, to hide. But after the night, he knew there was no hiding anymore. The cave had chosen him. The water had changed him. And now, the world would come for him. Daniel didn't bury the bodies. He couldn't. The ground seemed to reject them, roots twisting away, soil hardening to stone. When he tried dragging one toward the cave, the corpse dissolved into ash before it crossed the threshold. He stared at the black dust, his stomach tightening. The cave wasn't going to let anyone else enter. Not anymore. By morning, the forest was too quiet. No bird sang. No insects hummed. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Daniel knew why. More would come. The 5 hunters had been a vanguard. The whisperer's warning replayed endlessly in his skull. They will hunt you, and they will not stop. That night, he didn't wait. He went back into the chamber, his reflection rippling on the pool's glowing surface. His body throbbed with too much power now, every heartbeat a reminder that he wasn't human in the way he had been before. His veins glowed faintly beneath his skin when the light hit them. He felt like a lantern waiting to burst. The whisperer emerged again, no longer just a shadow. This time it carried weight, as though reality strained to keep it whole. Its outline flickered, part human, part something older, shifting between forms that refused to settle. You know what you are now, it said. Daniel clenched his fists. A vessel, the being tilted its head. Yes, but vessels must be poured into. The sleeper will rise. Through you it will live again. I won't let it, Daniel snapped. If it means killing myself, I won't let it. The whisperer's form shuddered, and for the first time, Daniel thought he heard sorrow in its voice. You sound like I once did. Daniel froze. You drank too. I was the vessel before you. I resisted. I fought. I refused becoming. And now I linger here, neither dead nor alive, chained to this place. My fate is warning those who come after. My punishment is eternity. The figure stepped closer, its hollow eyes fixed on him. You cannot run. You cannot undo. You can only choose, become the sleeper's flesh, or break the cycle and destroy the pool. Daniel's gaze snapped to the water. It pulsed brighter now, reacting to his nearness, threads of light spreading across the chamber walls. The inscriptions throbbed like veins, carrying the same rhythm as his own heart. If I destroy it, he whispered, what happens to me? The whisperer didn't answer at once. Finally, its voice cracked. The pool's power runs in your blood. If you sever it, you sever yourself. You will burn out with it. A death sentence. But wasn't that better than becoming a God-shaped nightmare? The choice gnawed at him. As if on cue, another wave of hunters came at dawn. Dozens this time, armed, coordinated, their weapons laced with strange symbols that burned when they struck the air. Daniel fought like a storm given flesh, every movement effortless, devastating. Trees fell, earth cracked, bodies shattered beneath his hands. But when the frenzy ended, when silence reclaimed the forest once more, Daniel stood trembling over the carnage. The hunger inside him roared, not with food but with desire, for more power, more destruction, more becoming. He staggered back to the chamber, his hands shaking. His reflection in the pool no longer looked human. His eyes glowed faintly, his veins etched with light, his face sharper, almost predatory. The whisperer lingered at his side. "Now you see why the hunters fear you." Daniel's throat tightened. "I don't want this." "Then end it." His heart pounded as he knelt by the pool. The glow reached for him, tendrils of light curling like fingers. It wanted him. It needed him. But he thought of the villages beyond the mountains, of cities, of the world that had no idea what slept beneath it. He thought of what would happen if he let himself become the sleeper's vessel fully. No, he couldn't allow that. Daniel plunged his hands into water. Agony ripped through him instantly. The pool screamed, not with sound, but with vibration so violent the chamber walls cracked. Light shot up his arms, burning his veins from the inside out. His skin split, glowing fissures tearing through muscle, bone, soul. He screamed with it, his voice joining the pools in a duet of destruction. The cave collapsed. Rocks shattered. Inscriptions burst into sparks. The mountain itself roaring, as though it resisted the death of what it had harbored. The last thing Daniel saw before darkness swallowed him was the whisperer, finally smiling. "You chose." When the dust settled, the cave was gone. Only rubble remained, sealing away what had once pulsed beneath. And Daniel? No body was found. But sometimes, when the wind rushes to the broken stones, travelers swear they hear a voice carried with it. Hoarse, hollow, but still strong. "You have no idea what you just became."